I thought I'd survived grief until my daughter called another woman Mom. After my wife passed away, the silence in our home wasn't just painful, it was unbearable. Grief hung in the air like fog, thick and inescapable. I tried to stay strong, mostly for my daughter's sake, but there were nights when I couldn't even bring myself to sleep in the same bed we once shared. She was only 4 when it happened, too young to understand death, but old enough to feel the loss. We kept going, or at least, we tried. Mornings were the hardest. She'd often ask where Mommy went. I didn't have the right words, just rehearsed lines I found online about angels and peace and forever goodbyes. Some days she smiled and played like before, and other days she sat quietly, drawing pictures of a woman with long hair holding her hand. My wife's hair had always been long. It crushed me. Parenting alone wasn't just about routines, it was about managing 2 people's grief with 1 broken heart. I'd quit my job temporarily to be with her full-time. Every moment was a test of my patience, my strength, and often my sanity. Yet, in all of it, I told myself we were making it. We were healing, slowly, maybe even steadily. Then came the moment that shattered that illusion entirely. It was a warm Sunday afternoon in early spring, the kind where laughter fills the air and strangers share park benches and ice cream trucks line the path. I took her to a local park where families gathered, hoping the sun and smiles would do us good. She ran ahead as children do freely, innocently, while I followed a few steps behind, holding her water bottle and her little stuffed rabbit she never let go of. I remember watching her slow down near a woman seated under a tree. This woman had dark curly hair tied back, wore a soft green blouse, and had her eyes closed like she was resting or lost in thought. My daughter stood there, just looking at her for a long moment. I thought maybe she was just curious. Maybe the woman reminded her of someone. Then, without warning, she ran to the woman, wrapped her tiny arms around her, and said, "Mommy." My heart stopped. The world felt like it tilted. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. I rushed forward, apologizing loudly, trying to explain my daughter was confused. We'd lost her mother. I was sorry, so sorry. But the woman didn't pull away. She opened her eyes slowly, looked at my daughter with something I couldn't read, and gently placed her hand on her back. Then, as I approached, she looked up at me. Her eyes widened, and then she said my name. I stopped in my tracks. That wasn't just a stranger. She knew me. She stood up, slowly, like she was in shock herself. Her lips parted, like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. My daughter, still clinging to her leg, looked up, then back at me, confused but calm, as if everything about this made perfect sense to her. And then the woman took a deep breath, stepped closer, and said, "We need to talk." She walks over slowly and says something I never expected. She didn't just respond, she said my name, like she already knew me. She stood there, inches away from me, still gently resting her hand on my daughter's back. Her eyes locked with mine, wide and glossy, as if memories were crashing into her all at once. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath shallow. There was something strange about the way she looked at me, like she wasn't seeing a stranger, but a ghost. And then, with a trembling voice, she said, "Daniel?" It stopped me cold. I hadn't heard a stranger say my name in months. Most people around me now were therapists, caseworkers, or silent neighbors who avoided eye contact. But this woman didn't ask who I was. She spoke like she already knew. My daughter still clung to her side, relaxed in a way that shook me more than the woman's words. I blinked, trying to mask the confusion. "Do we know each other?" I asked, unsure of anything in that moment. She didn't answer right away, her lips pressed into a thin line as if trying to swallow a tide of emotion. Finally, she said something I didn't understand. "You look just like him." I furrowed my brow. "Like who?" Still no clear answer. Just a small shake of her head and another whispered line. "I didn't think it would be like this." My instinct screamed. This was no coincidence. My daughter didn't just randomly pick a stranger and call her Mom. She had never even called any other woman auntie, let alone that. And this woman, her presence was both unsettling and oddly familiar, as if she belonged in a dream I'd half forgotten. "I think you need to tell me who you are," I said, my voice firmer now, protective. She glanced down at my daughter, who was now holding her hand tightly, then back at me. "Not here," she whispered. "Can we sit? Somewhere quiet?" Her eyes scanned the park, settling on a quiet bench under a tree. Still stunned, I followed. The three of us, Saturday. My daughter sat between us but leaned entirely into her, resting her head on the woman's side. She held her like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she had done it 100 times before. "She's never done that," I muttered under my breath, unable to keep the crack out of my voice. "She doesn't even let her teacher hold her hand when she cries." The woman looked at me again, softer now. "She remembers energy. Children always do, even when words and memories fade. She remembers me, even if you don't." That chilled me. "Okay," I said more urgently. "I'm done with cryptic lines. Who are you?" She nodded, as if she had been preparing for this moment for years. "My name is Mira." That name meant nothing to me at first. "I knew your wife," she continued, her voice shaking. "Very well. We were close. We grew up together." That made me pause. "You're saying you were childhood friends?" She hesitated again, then corrected. "More than that. We were raised in the same foster home, from age 6 till 17. I felt like the ground was shifting under me. "She never mentioned Amira." "No," she replied with a sad smile. "She wouldn't have. It was a painful chapter of her life. She cut ties with that part of herself to start new." I didn't know whether to believe her. Everything about this felt unreal, like someone had pulled me into a scene I didn't agree to act in. Still, there was something in her voice, something real. "Why are you here now?" I asked. She exhaled. "Because I've been looking for you since she died." That hit me like a truck. "What do you mean? You knew she died?" My voice cracked as I spoke. Mira nodded slowly. "I didn't find out until months later. And when I did, I couldn't forgive myself for not being there." I clenched my fists. "Then why show up now?" "Because I owe her something," she said quietly. "Because she asked me to find you, to find her daughter. She wanted her to know me. And I couldn't. I was scared. I waited too long." I looked down at my daughter, who was still curled up against this woman, this stranger, as if they shared something I never could. It was as beautiful as it was terrifying. "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my throat dry. "You don't have to say anything right now," Mira whispered. "But there's something I need to show you, something that might explain everything." I turned toward her sharply. "What is it?" She didn't speak. Instead, she slowly reached into the worn leather satchel beside her and pulled out something wrapped in tissue. Her fingers trembled as she handed it to me. I carefully unfolded it. Inside was an old photo, faded, creased at the corners. My breath caught when I saw it. There was my wife. She looked no older than 16, her arm wrapped tightly around a young Mira. Both girls were smiling genuine, radiant smiles. Behind them was a run-down porch I didn't recognize. But the most shocking part wasn't the image. It was what was written on the back of the photo. It simply said, "To my forever sister. If anything happens to me, find him. Find her. They're your family now. L." My knees nearly buckled. She hands me a photo that nearly makes me drop to my knees. One old photo undid everything I believed about my past. The photo rested in my hands like it weighed 10 pounds. My fingers shook slightly as I ran my thumb along its edges, rough from years of being folded and unfolded. Time had faded the colors, but not enough to hide the unmistakable truth. There, in the center of the frame, was my wife, laughing, carefree, younger than I'd ever seen her. Her smile was radiant, untouched by the storms that would one day come, and wrapped tightly around her shoulders, almost cheek to cheek, was the woman who now sat beside me, Mira. I couldn't look away. It was like seeing a ghost come to life. They looked so happy, like sisters who had grown up side by side, bound by something deeper than blood. The way they leaned into each other, it wasn't posed. It was instinctive, familiar, natural. It hit me then how little I truly knew about my wife's childhood. She had always been quiet about that time, changing the subject when I asked too much. I assumed it was trauma. Maybe it was. Maybe this woman was part of that. Where was this taken? I finally asked, still staring. Mira leaned back slightly, watching my reaction with quiet empathy. At the home. We were 16. That was the summer we ran away together for the first time. The home? I repeated, confused. The foster home, she clarified. We were placed together when we were 6. Same room, same food, same rules. That house was not a good place. I looked back down at the photo. I tried to remember the way my wife used to pause every time someone asked about her parents, how she never hung childhood pictures around our home. Her past had always been sealed like a box I wasn't allowed to open. But now that box was sitting on my lap, cracked wide open, and it hurt. She never told me about you, I said, barely hiding the sting in my voice. Mira nodded solemnly. She wouldn't. After we got separated, she blamed herself. Then, when she finally got out and started her own life, she wanted to be clean of it all, of everything that reminded her of what we went through, including me. I swallowed hard. What happened? Why did you lose touch? She looked down, her voice softening. After the first time we ran away, we were caught. The system split us up. Different homes, different cities. We tried writing letters, but they got intercepted. Phones weren't an option. We were just kids. And you never found each other again? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Years passed. She aged out. I did too, eventually. By the time I tracked her down, she was already gone. Her voice cracked on that last word. I sat back, stunned. This woman who appeared out of nowhere, whose name I'd never heard until minutes ago, now held the missing chapter of the woman I loved most in this world. It was infuriating, and yet, it was illuminating. Mira looked at me gently. She tried to find me, Daniel. Before she died. I know that for certain. I turned toward her, disbelief settling in. How could you know that? She opened her satchel again and pulled out a folded piece of yellowing paper. She held it with care and offered it to me without a word. I unfolded it slowly, cautious of its fragility. It was a letter. My wife's handwriting. My throat tightened just seeing it. Dear Mira, if you're reading this, then it means I've found a way to reach you. I think about you all the time. I've never stopped. You were my anchor in that place. I have a daughter now. Her name is Lily. If anything ever happens to me, please find her. Find Daniel. They're your family too. Love always, Leah. I couldn't read the rest. My eyes blurred with tears. The page trembled in my hands. I had no idea this letter existed. And yet, here it was proof that my wife had spent her final years trying to reconcile a part of her past she kept hidden from me. It hurt that she didn't tell me. But it also comforted me, knowing she was trying to heal the old wounds that haunted her. I looked up at Mira, blinking hard. She wrote that 6 months before she passed, Mira whispered. But it never made it to me. It got buried in paperwork from a therapist she once saw. I only got it after a social worker reached out to me by mistake. By the time I read it, the funeral had already happened. I could see it in her face, the guilt, the pain, the crushing weight of too late. I should have come sooner, she added. I was afraid. I thought maybe you'd hate me. Or worse, maybe Lily wouldn't remember me. I exhaled slowly, the air thick in my lungs. She called you Mom, Mira. Not just out of confusion. She felt something. She knew something. Mira looked away then, blinking rapidly. We sat there for a long time. The photo between us, the letter in my lap, the silence shared by two people grieving the same woman from different lives. I didn't know what I was supposed to do with all this information, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. She really loved you, didn't she? I finally asked. Mira nodded without hesitation. She saved me, more times than I can count, and now I want to do right by her. If you'll let me, she adds. She tried to find me before she died, and I failed her. She knew stories about my wife even I'd never heard. The sun had dipped below the trees by the time we both sat on that old wooden bench again, no longer strangers but not quite family. Lily had dozed off in Mira's arms, her little head nestled into her shoulder like it belonged there. And maybe it did. I still didn't know what to believe. But I couldn't deny what I had seen: my daughter's comfort with this woman, the letter in her bag, the photo, the name I hadn't heard in all the years I spent trying to piece together the corners of my wife's past. Mira looked out at the park, her voice steady, but tinged with grief. "The first time I met Leah," she began, "we were both 6. She had a locket with her mom's picture inside. She wore it every day, even when the other kids teased her. She said she wasn't going to forget her mom, no matter what. I had never seen a locket. Leah must have lost it or hidden it before we met. It pained me to imagine a little girl clinging to a single photo like a lifeline. We were placed in that group home the same day," Mira continued. "It wasn't a home. It was survival." She described the place in chilling detail. The overcrowded rooms, the punishments for wetting the bed, the older kids who ruled through fear, and the staff, some of whom didn't care, and others who did things no child should ever endure. It was a house that swallowed childhood and replaced it with silence, secrets, and scars. "Leah protected me," she said. "I was smaller, quieter, easy to bully. She once threw herself in front of me when an older girl tried to burn my arm with a curling iron. She got a scar for it. I didn't know what to say. I'd never seen a scar like that on Leah's arm. She must have hidden it, or maybe I never asked. Maybe I didn't want to see the signs that she had buried an entire life before me. She was my only real family," Mira said softly. "We used to call each other sisters by fire, because that house tried to burn us down, but we held on to each other instead." There was a pause, the kind that feels like it carries years of weight. I asked, quietly, "What happened when you were separated?" Mira exhaled, like the story had to claw its way out. "We ran away once. We were 14. We made it 3 cities away before they caught us. After that, they split us up. Said we were a bad influence on each other. Different homes, different states." Her eyes dropped to Lily's sleeping face. "I cried for weeks. Leah never stopped writing to me. But her letters stopped arriving one day. I kept writing back, even when nothing came. I was convinced she just forgot me, moved on. I didn't know her letters were being intercepted. I rubbed my face with both hands. She never said anything, not even once. I knew she had trauma, but not this. She told me she was raised by relatives." Mira gave a sad smile. "She probably told you what she wished had been true. That's what we did. We made up better stories than the ones we lived. It was easier that way." I looked over at her, not sure what emotion to feel. "Why now? Why tell me all of this now? Because I can't change the past, Daniel. But I can do right by her now. I promised myself if I ever found her again, I wouldn't run. I'd show up. And when I found out she had a child," she paused, "I had to come." There was another silence between us, but this one didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a bridge being built, one plank at a time. "I don't know what to do with this," I confessed. "This isn't just about grief anymore. It's like someone opened a door to a part of her I never even got to meet." Mira nodded, gently brushing Lily's hair from her forehead. "There's a lot you didn't get to see. Leah carried so much pain, but she also carried so much love. She talked about the life she was building with you like it was a miracle. She used to say, 'He makes me feel safe, like there's nothing to run from anymore.' That nearly broke me." "She said that?" "She said it all the time," Mira whispered. "She was proud of the life she built with you. She just didn't know how to bring the old into the new." I stared out at the horizon. My chest was tight with emotion, with understanding, with a grief that now felt heavier and lighter at the same time. "I wish she had told me," I said. "I wish I'd gotten there in time," Mira replied. We sat like that, locked in the ache of too many missed chances, too many unsaid things. And then Mira said something that made me freeze. "There's something else you should know, Daniel," she said, her voice almost trembling. I turned to her slowly, sensing the weight of what was coming. She looked at Lily, still sleeping, peaceful in her arms. And then she whispered, Your daughter. She isn't a stranger to me either. Then she says, there's something else. Your daughter isn't a stranger to me either. She looked me in the eye and said, she remembers me. For a moment, I didn't move. The weight of Mira's words pressed down on me like a boulder. Your daughter isn't a stranger to me either. I stared at her, trying to understand exactly what that meant. Lily shifted slightly in her arms but remained asleep, peaceful, unaware of the invisible threads tying her to this woman from a life I never knew existed. What do you mean she isn't a stranger? I finally asked, my voice laced with tension. Mira looked down at Lily with an expression that blended pain, affection, and something like awe. Because I've held her before, she whispered, just once, but I never forgot it. I felt my jaw tighten. That's impossible. Leah never. She did, Mira interrupted gently. She just didn't tell you. Not because she didn't trust you. Because she didn't want to open a door she wasn't sure she could keep open. I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees. You're going to have to explain that. Mira sighed, as if gathering the pieces of memory before laying them bare. It was a year before she passed. She found me, tracked me down through an old youth counselor who used to check in on us both after we aged out of foster care. She showed up one day out of nowhere. I hadn't seen her in almost 15 years. The idea of Leah walking into someone else's life without telling me was hard to swallow. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I had built our relationship on the belief that we had shared everything. Now it was becoming painfully clear that there were parts of her she had kept sealed tight, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, fear, and maybe even shame. She told me about Lily, Mira continued, how much she loved you, how happy she was to finally feel like she belonged somewhere, but she also said she never stopped feeling like something was missing, and that something was me. Then why didn't she tell me? I asked again. Get her now. Because she wasn't ready. She was scared I'd be a reminder of everything she'd worked so hard to leave behind. But I think she also hoped we'd meet one day, just not like this. I looked at her, eyes narrowed. So when did you meet Lily? Mira's lips trembled slightly. Leah asked me to come to the park one afternoon. She said she wanted me to meet her baby just once. I sat with them on a bench for 20 minutes. Lily was so small. She kept grabbing my necklace and giggling. Leah told her I was her Aunt Mira. The words hit me like a punch. Aunt Mira. She didn't remember you, I argued, needing to hold on to some sense of control. She was a baby. Mira didn't flinch. No, not with words, not consciously. But children remember feelings, faces, energy. She looked at me today the same way she looked at me that day, like she knew I belonged. It sounded crazy, but somewhere in my gut, I couldn't dismiss it. There had been something unmistakable in Lily's reaction when she ran into Mira's arms. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't coincidence. Still, I was her father, and I needed to protect her not just physically, but emotionally. If all of this is true, I said, trying to stay calm, why didn't you come forward sooner? After Leah died? You said you found out too late, but you've had time since then. I know, Mira said, pain evident in her voice. I was grieving too. I felt like I had failed her again. I didn't think you'd welcome me. And then I found out you had a daughter, and I thought, maybe I'd be doing more harm than good. I shook my head slowly. She needed you. Mira's eyes watered, and I wasn't there. I'll carry that forever. We sat there for a few minutes, neither of us speaking. Lily stirred, opening her eyes slightly before curling back into Mira's shoulder with a sleepy hum. My heart twisted. She told me about the stuffed rabbit, Mira said quietly. What? She said Lily wouldn't sleep without it. She said it reminded her of something she'd never had, safety. I stared at her, stunned. Leah had only mentioned that once to me, in a hushed voice after putting Lily to bed. She'd said it so casually, I hadn't given it much thought. But the way Mira recited it, it was word for word. I didn't make any of this up, Daniel, she said. And I didn't come to take your daughter away. I came to connect, to heal, to honor Leah. Part of me still felt resistant, hesitant to let this stranger, this woman who felt like both a miracle and a threat, into our lives. But another part of me, the part still aching from the hole Leah left behind, felt something I didn't expect. Relief. Relief that maybe Lily wouldn't grow up missing pieces of her mother she'd never understand. Relief that someone else loved Leah enough to still carry her in memory. And then Mira reached into her bag again. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice soft but firm. Something she left with me that I've held on to for this exact moment. I turned to her slowly, unsure what she meant. She pulled out a sealed envelope, yellowed at the edges, carefully preserved. My name was written across the front in Leah's handwriting, but it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Mira. Then the woman shows me a letter written by my wife addressed to her. Her words were like echoes from another world, full of love, fear, and last wishes. Mira handed me the envelope like it was a sacred object, her fingers trembling as they let it go. My eyes locked onto my late wife's handwriting, still neat, still familiar, still unbearably alive. The ink had slightly faded, but the strokes were unmistakable. My throat tightened. I didn't know if I could open it. I didn't know if I should. But my hands had already moved, slowly peeling back the flap as if I were afraid the whole thing might fall apart in my grasp. The letter inside was folded into thirds. When I opened it, the first line stopped me cold. "If you're reading this, Mira, it means I either got brave or I ran out of time." That one sentence was enough to shake me. It was Leah. Not just her handwriting, but her voice, her sarcasm, her honesty, her fear dressed in dark humor. I could almost hear her saying it. I continued reading. I've wanted to reach out so many times, so many almosts. But every time I get close, something pulls me back. Fear, shame, life. You know how I am. Or maybe how I was. I hope I've changed. I hope you've changed too. God, I hope you're happy. I blinked away, the sting in my eyes, my chest already tightening under the weight of her words. I found someone, Mira. His name is Daniel. He's kind, steady, funny in a completely awkward way. He doesn't know everything about me, not yet. I wanted to tell him, but I didn't know how to open that door without everything else flooding in. That line hit me like a stone to the heart. So she had wanted to tell me. I wasn't imagining the hesitation I sometimes saw in her eyes. She had secrets, but not because she didn't love me, because she didn't know how to stop running from them. We have a daughter. Her name is Lily. She's light. She's noise and mess and tiny kisses and questions about the moon. She's everything I never thought I'd have. I closed my eyes, trying to picture Leah writing those words. Maybe late at night. Maybe when Lily had just gone to sleep. Maybe after a fight or a moment of joy or a quiet walk around the block. But the way she wrote about our daughter, it poured off the page like poetry. If anything ever happens to me, God, even writing that feels wrong, but if it does, I need you to find them. Find Daniel. Find Lily. Be there. Even if it's awkward. Even if you're scared. Don't let her grow up without knowing where she came from. Don't let her carry the silence I carried. I felt Mira watching me, but I couldn't look up. My vision blurred. My hands shook slightly. My heart was somewhere between broken and mended. You're her family too. Maybe not by law. Maybe not by birth. But you're her family by everything that matters. Please, Mira, for me. The final line was simple. Don't let her forget me. And don't let her feel alone. I folded the letter slowly, as if closing it too quickly would somehow erase what I had just read. When I finally looked up, Mira's eyes were filled with tears. She wasn't crying, not exactly, but she looked like someone who had carried grief in silence for far too long and finally heard it spoken out loud. She wrote this a month before the accident, Mira said softly. She gave it to me when she came to see me, told me to hold on to it, just in case. I never thought I'd actually need it. I nodded slowly. My voice didn't want to work. When it finally did, it was a whisper. I didn't know she was thinking about that. About if something happened. Mira gave a sad smile. She always thought ahead, even when it hurt. We sat in silence, the kind that's filled with meaning. The air felt heavier, but not in a suffocating way, in a sacred way. Like we were sitting in the space between life and memory, both carrying pieces of someone we loved and lost. I don't know what to feel, I admitted. Part of me feels like I was kept in the dark, like she didn't trust me with the full story. And another part of me is just grateful that she loved us enough to make a plan. Mira nodded. I've carried this for a long time. The guilt, the regret. I should have come sooner. I should have tried harder. But I was scared. And by the time I gathered the courage, she was gone. I finally looked at her fully. You're here now. She blinked, surprised by my words. I don't know what this means, I said honestly. For me, for you, for Lily, but I believe she wanted you in her life. And if she trusted you to be part of Lily's future, I owe it to her to try. Mira's lips trembled. Thank you. We didn't hug. We didn't say anything more for a while. There was nothing else to say. Then Lily stirred again, opening her eyes slowly. She looked up at Mira, then at me, and then back at Mira. Her expression was calm, curious, not afraid. Mira smiled softly. Hey there, sleepy girl. Lily blinked, then tilted her head, as if she were studying her face. And then, in the smallest, clearest voice, she asked, Can I call you Mom again? My daughter asks her. Can I call you Mom again? I was her father, but I wasn't enough anymore. I didn't answer right away. When Lily looked at Mira and asked, Can I call you Mom again? My heart cracked in a way I didn't even know was possible. I should have felt joy that she was healing, that something in her spirit was opening again. But what I felt instead was hollow, as if I'd just watched a piece of her drift out of my reach. She still needed me, I knew that. But in that moment, she had chosen someone else to fill the space her real mother had left behind. And no matter how rational I tried to be, some part of me couldn't help but feel replaced. Mira looked at me immediately, sensing the storm inside me. Her eyes weren't triumphant. They were full of something gentler caution, understanding, even guilt. She didn't answer Lily either, not until she looked at me. I forced a smile, or something close to it. It's okay, I said, though the words scraped my throat on the way out. Mira bent down to Lily's level and said, You can call me whatever feels right to you, sweet girl, but just know I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm just here to love you. Lily smiled, then nestled into her again. My chest tightened further. That night at home, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat in the dark living room for what felt like hours. Mira had left shortly after we got back, sensing I needed space. And I did. Because I was confused. Because I was hurting. Because I didn't know what came next. Grief is strange. It doesn't just come when someone dies. It resurfaces when you realize the world keeps turning without them. When your daughter finds comfort in someone else's arms. When the sound of someone else being called Mom fills the silence you once fought so hard to escape. I wasn't angry at Mira. Not really. I was angry at the hole Leah had left behind. At how big it was. At how much it hurt to realize someone else could help fill it. The next morning, Mira showed up with coffee and silence. She sat beside me on the porch and didn't speak until I was ready. I don't want to take anything from you, she said softly. Least of all her. I just want to be part of the picture Leah always hoped we'd paint together. The one she never got to see. I nodded. I wanted to believe her. But part of me still clung tightly to the fear that I was losing something that had taken everything to build. I started seeing a grief therapist again. This time, I brought Lily too. The sessions were slow at first. Lily mostly colored while I tried to talk about guilt, fear, and the quiet ache that lingered even on good days. But one week, the therapist gently suggested something that shook me. Maybe the healing isn't about letting go of the past, maybe it's about welcoming the future in a different shape. I didn't understand it fully until the day we all went to the park together. Me, Mira, and Lily. At first it felt strange, forced, like pretending to play happy family for the sake of appearances. But then I saw how Lily laughed when Mira pushed her on the swing, how she ran to both of us, switching between Daddy and Mira like she was building something new, not replacing anything old. And I realized maybe I had been holding on to my grief too tightly. Maybe I was afraid to let joy in again because it would mean accepting that Leah was really gone, that a chapter had closed, that a new one was beginning whether I wanted it to or not. I wasn't ready to call Mira family. Not yet. But I was ready to stop fighting the possibility. We started slow. Sunday dinners, weekend story time, afternoons at the zoo. Lily beamed in ways I hadn't seen in months, in ways I wasn't sure I could take credit for. And that was okay. Then, just as things began to feel stable again, life reminded us how fragile peace really island. It was a late afternoon. Mira and I were packing up after a picnic in the backyard. Lily had gone inside to get her doll, and Mira was gathering plates when a black SUV pulled up across the street. At first, I didn't think anything of it, until I saw the man get out. Tall, clean-cut, expensive watch, cold eyes. Mira froze. Her body went stiff in a way I'd never seen before, not even when she'd first approached me. Not when she told me about Leah. Not even when she handed me that letter from the grave. She just whispered one word. Jonas. I looked at her. Who is? She grabbed my arm tightly. He's from before. From the foster years. We need to go inside. Now. I didn't argue. We locked the door, drew the curtains, told Lily we were playing a quiet game. Mira's hands shook as she paced the hallway. He wasn't supposed to know where I live, she said, eyes darting to the window. He used to follow me, harass me. Then he disappeared. I thought it was over. My heart began to race, not just for her, but for Lily, for the home we were trying to build, for the peace that was now hanging by a thread. Do you think he followed you here? I asked. She didn't answer. Outside, the car was still parked, engine running, waiting, but someone from the woman's past reappears with a threat. Not every ghost wears chains, some wear smiles and legal threats. The SUV didn't move for nearly an hour. Mira sat at the edge of the couch, back straight, eyes fixed on the curtains as if she could see through them. She didn't speak, and I didn't press. Not until Lily had gone to bed and the street was finally dark. Who is he? I asked again, quieter this time. She sighed like she hadn't taken a full breath in years. His name is Martin Keller, but everyone in the house called him Mr. K. He was our legal guardian. Ran the group home where Leah and I were raised. I could tell just by the way she said it that the word guardian didn't mean protection. He wasn't like the others, Mira continued. He never yelled, never hit. He just controlled, quietly, legally, emotionally, and worse. I didn't need details to understand. Her voice, her posture, they told me enough. I left when I was 17, she said. He said I'd be nothing without him, that I'd come crawling back, that no one would ever believe me if I told the truth. And now he's here? I asked. After all this time? He never let go, she said. He sent messages over the years, pretending to check in, pretending to care. But he was always watching, always reminding me that he could ruin me with a phone call. My stomach turned. The next morning, a certified letter arrived at my door. Mira sat frozen on the porch as I opened it. Inside was a formal document, legal language, printed clean and sharp. At the top, in bold, petition to assess home environment involving minor child, L. Carson. My name was on it. So was Mira's. He was filing a complaint with Child Protective Services, claiming that Mira was unstable, emotionally dangerous, and potentially harmful to Lily's upbringing. He was trying to paint her as an unfit influence, not a threat in the physical sense, but in the eyes of the state. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mira didn't speak. She just folded the paper, held it in her lap, and stared ahead with eyes that had already seen too much. Why would he do this? I asked, already knowing the answer. Because I stood up to him, she said. Because he doesn't like seeing people escape him, and because he knows I'm finally rebuilding something good. What can he actually do? I asked. Legally? She shrugged. He's done it before. He uses the system like a weapon. files reports, sends investigators, spreads rumors that can't be disproven. We're not doing this alone, I said firmly. We'll fight this. But Mira didn't respond. She just sat there, as still as stone. Later that day, I called our family therapist, explained what was happening, asked what we could do to defend ourselves before the damage was done. She agreed to write a formal statement, an evaluation of Mira's emotional health, her behavior around Lily, and her conduct during joint sessions. We'll also need character witnesses, I said. I have no one, Mira replied, her voice almost a whisper. I burned every bridge trying to escape my past. You have me, I said, but even as I said it, I knew we'd need more. We spent the next week gathering documents, references, statements, anything that could counter the claims Mr. Keller was trying to make. Every night, we waited for the other shoe to drop. Every knock on the door made Mira flinch. Every phone call that went to voicemail filled me with dread. Then, one afternoon, he arrived in person. Lily was napping. Mira and I were sitting in the kitchen, going over paperwork, when I saw the shadow through the front door's frosted glass. When I opened it, he stood there tall, impeccably dressed, holding a thick envelope in one hand and a smile that chilled me in the other. Mr. Carson, he said smoothly, I've been hoping we could speak. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. You have no business being here, I said, keeping my voice even. He tilted his head. I'm simply following due process. When the safety of a child is potentially at risk, I take my responsibilities very seriously. You don't even know my daughter, I snapped. But I know Mira, he said. And more importantly, I know the patterns of people like her. I clenched my jaw. She is not who she once was, I said. She's building something better. He chuckled. Is that what she told you? And now she's already replacing your wife, isn't she? You might want to ask yourself what that says about her, or about you. I wanted to hit him. Instead, I took the envelope, stepped back inside, and closed the door without another word. Mira stood in the hallway, pale and rigid. He's going to destroy me, she said softly. No, I said, unfolding the papers in my hand. We're going to stop him. But what I read inside shook me. He had filed for a formal hearing within 2 weeks. He was requesting an emergency evaluation of our home, and possibly temporary removal of Lily until the case could be reviewed. He wasn't just bluffing. Then he shows up at my house with papers. Sometimes family is judged by blood, and sometimes by court. The days that followed blurred into each other, filled with documents, phone calls, lawyer consultations, and the kind of anxiety that eats at you slowly, like rust on something once strong. CPS was officially involved. They contacted me first, then Mira, then our therapist, then Lily's pediatrician. Each call felt like a silent accusation, no matter how kind the tone or how polite the questions. It wasn't just about Mira anymore. It was about our entire home, about Lily, about whether the family we were building could survive scrutiny from people who only saw files, timelines, and signatures, not love, not loss, not healing. The caseworker assigned to us was a woman named Karen Reese, firm, professional, but not cold. She arrived one morning with a clipboard and a carefully neutral smile. I invited her in, offered her coffee. She declined. She asked if Lily was home. I told her she was at daycare. She sat on the couch and opened her folder. Let's talk about the complaint. I nodded, heart pounding. I understand Mira has been staying here regularly. Yes, since she reconnected with my daughter. She's a part of our lives. She's not legally related to Lily. Are you aware that continued exposure, if deemed inappropriate, can affect custody? I am. She looked up. So tell me, why are you allowing her to stay? I didn't hesitate. Because she's not a stranger. She's Leah's sister. Maybe not by blood, but by every other measure. And she's the only connection Lily has to the part of her mother I never got to know. Karen's pen hovered above the page. You trust her? With my life, I said. And more importantly, with Lily's. She made a note. We'll need to interview her separately. And your daughter too. My stomach turned. Lily's only 5. She's been through enough. Karen met my eyes. We'll be gentle. That evening, Mira sat across from the same caseworker, her hands folded tightly in her lap, knuckles white. I stood in the kitchen, close enough to hear, but far enough to let her speak her truth alone. Karen asked questions. Mira answered them with a kind of brutal honesty that both stunned and humbled me. She didn't sugarcoat her past, not the abuse, not the trauma, not the years she spent running, hiding, trying to survive. But she also didn't wallow in it. She spoke of healing, of therapy, of rebuilding. And when she spoke of Lily, her voice cracked. "She doesn't need a second mom," she said. "She has Daniel. And she had Leah. But she needs someone who remembers where she came from. Someone who can say, 'You look just like her,' and mean it." Karen scribbled notes but didn't interrupt. "I'm not here to fix anything," Mira added. "Just to be present, to love her, to carry the parts of her mother she never got to meet." I watched Karen's eyes soften slightly. She didn't smile, but something shifted. Later that week, they interviewed Lily. I stayed outside the room, pacing. When she emerged, she ran to me and whispered, "I told them Mira makes the best pancakes." I laughed through the lump in my throat. The following Monday, we were called to a formal hearing. Not a full-blown courtroom, more of a private administrative session. A neutral judge, a CPS representative, and both of us seated side by side at a long table. Karen presented her findings first. She spoke of Mira's past, the complaint filed by Mr. Keller, the psychological evaluations, and the records reviewed. Then she paused. "But," she said, "our observations show no signs of present instability, no indicators of danger, neglect, or emotional distress for the child involved. In fact, the child appears to have a deep emotional bond with the individual in question, a bond that is nurturing, consistent, and grounded in care." I could barely breathe. Then the judge turned to Mira. "Is there anything you'd like to add before we give our decision?" Mira nodded. "Just this," she said quietly. "I failed Leah once. I didn't come when she needed me. I can't undo that. But I will not fail her daughter. Not again." The room was silent. The judge looked down at the paperwork, then back at us. "The court finds no evidence to support removal or restriction at this time. We encourage continued monitoring and support, but there are no legal grounds to pursue custody changes based on the complaint." Relief flooded through me, until the judge added one final note. "However, we do recommend that the child's guardianship structure be formalized, whether through shared guardianship, adoption, or designated legal rights. Informal arrangements like this are vulnerable, especially when challenged. The final decision is in, and it's not what we expected. We didn't win custody. We earned something deeper." Walking out of that hearing felt less like victory and more like transformation. We hadn't just fought to keep our home intact, we had redefined what it meant to be one. The judge's words echoed in my head as we stepped into the sunlight. Shared guardianship, emotional intent, best interest of the child. They weren't just phrases from a courtroom. They were the building blocks of something neither of us expected but were somehow already living. Mira didn't speak as we walked down the courthouse steps. She held Lily's hand tightly, and Lily skipped between us like she had no idea how close we'd come to losing her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe that was the point. Children often carry the weight of things they don't fully understand. And sometimes, the best love is the kind that never lets them feel it. In the days that followed, something began to shift, not just in our living arrangement, but in the air between us. It was no longer Mira visiting occasionally, or me stepping in cautiously. It was us learning how to parent together, awkwardly at times, but always with care. We decided to move forward with formal paperwork, naming Mira as Lily's co-guardian. It was a decision that came with more legal counsel, more signatures, more bureaucracy than I'd ever imagined. But by the end of it, Mira wasn't just a figure from the past. She was legally a piece of Lily's future. The first time we hung her name next to mine on Lily's school paperwork, I felt something settle inside me. Not a loss of control, a widening of capacity, a deeper understanding of love. The kind that bends and flexes and reforms without breaking. We sat down one evening with Lily, and told her about the decision. "You already have a mommy in heaven," I said, my hand gently over hers. "And you have a daddy here. But now, you also have someone who loves you like both, and she's going to help us take care of you." Lily looked at us both and nodded. "So now I have 3. 3? I asked, amused. "Mama, Daddy, and Mira," she said, as if it were the most obvious math in the world. Mira smiled, her eyes full. From there, we started building new routines. Mornings became a shared rhythm of breakfast prep and rushed shoelaces. Evenings were reading sessions, shared dinner stories, and occasional board games where Lily made up her own rules. One weekend, we drove out to the beach not to escape anything, but just to be. We built sandcastles and watched Lily chase the tide. I watched Mira laugh freely, finally, and saw a softness in her I hadn't fully seen before. She wasn't just recovering from her past, she was stepping into her future, and so was I. There were moments when it was still complicated, when memories of Leah would surface, and I'd feel the weight of everything she never got to see: Lily's first words, her first day of school, this strange but beautiful family we were forming without her. But Mira never tried to erase her. She honored Leah in little ways through the stories she told, the photos she hung up in Lily's room, the recipes she learned just so she could say, "Your mom used to make this." And somehow, Leah's absence didn't feel like a void anymore. It felt like a thread woven into every new moment we created. Lily began to thrive again. The tantrums at night faded. The nightmares slowed. Her laughter returned in full, bubbling out during bath time and erupting across pillow forts. She drew pictures of the 3 of us stick figures holding hands, always under a bright Sunday. In every one, her mother was there too, a glowing figure just above, smiling. One evening, as we cleaned up the mess from a baking experiment gone wrong, we'd tried muffins. They'd turned into something resembling soup. Mira leaned against the counter and watched Lily dance through the living room. "She's so happy," she said softly. "She's safe," I replied. We stood there in that warm kitchen, flour still on our sleeves, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a single parent anymore. I felt like someone surrounded, supported, whole in a way that grief had once made impossible. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Mira and I sat out on the porch. The sky was clear, stars blinking down quietly. "I never thought this would happen," she said. "Me neither," I admitted. "But I'm glad it did." She was quiet for a moment, then turned to me with an expression I hadn't seen before. It wasn't fear. It wasn't doubt. It was something deeper. "Braver. There's something I've been meaning to ask you," she said. "Okay," I said, caught off guard. Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted. Us, this family, this home, it feels real and right, but I need to know." She paused, then finally asked the question I wasn't expecting. But the woman asks me a question that catches me completely off guard. She didn't ask to be part of our lives, she asked for something more. The night air was still warm, carrying the soft scent of summer grass and freshly watered plants from the porch. We sat side by side, the porch light casting soft shadows behind us, sipping tea that had gone cold long before either of us touched it. Lily had been asleep for over an hour, the quiet thump of her tiny fan the only sound filtering through the open window behind us. I thought Mira was lost in thought. She often was after Lily went to bed, staring out at the night like she was talking to someone only she could see. But tonight, there was something different in the way she held herself, as if she were waiting for a sign, or working up the courage to say something she'd rehearsed 100 times. "Daniel," she said suddenly, quietly, not looking at me. "Yeah?" She still didn't turn her head. "Can I ask you something? And you promise to really think about it?" Her tone was so delicate, so weighted, that I straightened up instinctively. "Of course." She took a breath, deep, slow, as if bracing for something more than just a conversation. "I was thinking," she began, "about all we've been through, about how Lily sees me now, how this isn't just occasional visits or emergency help. It's becoming real, consistent, a life." I nodded, unsure where she was going but sensing the edges of something big. She turned toward me finally, eyes searching mine. What would you think if I moved in? At least part-time. My breath caught. The question landed like a soft explosion, quiet, but impossible to ignore. It wasn't just a request for convenience. It was something deeper, a declaration of intent. She wasn't asking for space, she was asking for permanence, for home. I know it's a lot, she added quickly, almost defensively. And I'm not trying to replace anyone or rush anything. She looked down at her hands. I've never had a home that felt like this, with routines, with laughter, with love that isn't earned through survival. And Lily, she sees me as part of it now, but I still feel like I'm on the porch looking in. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Not because I didn't want her there, but because the weight of the past settled on my chest like a shadow. I looked at the window where Leah's photo still sat on the sill, her smile frozen in time. She had filled this home with love, once. With music, with morning pancakes, with sleepy goodnights whispered down the hall. Part of me felt like letting Mira live here would mean letting go of Leah, of what we had, of the space she still occupied, even in silence. But then I thought of Lily, how she had stopped waking from nightmares, how she now ran through the house with drawings clutched in her hands, shouting, "Look, Mira," like it was the most natural thing in the world, how she now fell asleep faster on the nights Mira tucked her in. This wasn't about letting go of Leah. It was about letting Lily grow into something new. "You don't have to answer now," Mira said, pulling me gently back to the present. "I just needed to ask, because I'm tired of living in pieces, and I think maybe this could be a whole picture." I didn't answer right away. We said goodnight shortly after, both aware that something important had just passed between us. I lay awake long after the lights went out, staring at the ceiling, heart caught between memory and possibility. Around midnight, I got up for water. As I passed the old cedar chest at the end of the hallway, the one where I kept letters, keepsakes, mementos of Leah, something made me stop. I hadn't opened it in months, not since the day I'd taken out her first letter, the one she'd written to Mira. But now, standing there in the dark, I felt compelled to lift the lid. Inside, tucked in the corner of an old photo album, was an envelope I didn't recognize. My name was written on it, in Leah's handwriting. Heart racing, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it with hands that trembled. That night, I find a second letter written by my wife. To me. I started this journey broken and ended it with more love than I thought I deserved. The envelope was thin, aged, but untouched. My name written in soft, elegant cursive, familiar and intimate. I had seen Leah's handwriting countless times, but this felt different. There was intention in every loop of the letters, as if she had known exactly when I would need to read it. I unfolded the letter and took a deep breath. Then I read, "Daniel, if you're reading this, something has happened, or maybe something is about to. Either way, this letter is for the day when life begins to look different than we planned. The day when you need to be reminded of something I've always known. You are stronger than you believe. And you will never be alone, no matter what comes next." I paused, already feeling the burn behind my eyes. "I know you. I know how you carry guilt, how you measure yourself by the promises you couldn't keep, even when they were impossible. But Daniel, if I've learned anything, it's that love isn't measured by what we hold on to. It's defined by what we're willing to let grow." The paper trembled slightly in my hands as I read on. "If Mira finds her way to you, please don't see her as a shadow of my memory. She's not there to replace me. She's there to continue what I couldn't finish. And if Lily calls her Mom one day, don't let it break your heart. Let it remind you that I did something right, that I left her in good hands." I stopped reading. My chest heaved as if I had run miles. And yet, there was peace between every tear. I knew my answer, not just to Mira's question, but to the unspoken one that had haunted me since the day Leah died. How do I move forward without forgetting her? The next morning, I made breakfast pancakes, the way Leah used to make them. Mira and Lily joined me at the table. It felt easy, real. After Lily went to school, I took Mira aside and handed her the letter. She read it in silence, the same way I had slowly, reverently, pausing at certain lines as if they carried the breath of her sister's voice. When she finished, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "She wanted this," I said gently. "She wanted you to be here, with us." Mira nodded. "And what do you want?" "I want to stop grieving in fear," I said. "I want Lily to keep laughing. I want this house to feel full again. I want what Leah wanted. A home, a family. Not perfect, just whole." That weekend, we cleared out the spare room, not as a guest space, as a bedroom for Mira. A place that was hers, not borrowed, not temporary. We created a rhythm, not just two adults rotating care, but something fluid, intuitive. Mira took over school lunches. I handled bedtime routines. She taught Lily how to braid hair. I taught her how to ride a bike. We talked about roles, boundaries, future plans. Not everything was easy, but it was real, and real was all we needed. Friends started asking questions. Some assumed we were dating. Others whispered about an unconventional setup. But we didn't owe anyone a label. What we had was family in the truest, messiest, most sacred sense of the word. One night, Lily came into the kitchen holding a drawing. She pointed to the stick figures, one with long hair, one with short hair, and one small in the middle. "That's you," she said, pointing to me. "That's Mira. And that's me." Then she added, "We're the kind of family that loves extra." That one line summed it all up. We celebrated holidays together. Mira baked her mother's traditional recipes, passing them to Lily. I taught Lily how to hang lights, how to drive nails without splitting wood, how to tie fishing knots, skills Leah used to laugh about, calling them dad things. Sometimes we'd all sit in the living room, watching old home videos of Leah, her laugh echoing through the house, her smile frozen in memories that hurt a little less now. Mira never tried to take Leah's place. She helped Lily remember, and she helped me live again. Years passed like pages in a book you never expected to write. And in every chapter, Mira was there not as a footnote, not as a guest star, but as a co-author. The house changed, too. Not just the photos on the wall or the colors of the curtains, but the feeling. It breathed differently. Not like a shrine to what was lost, but a sanctuary for what had been found. On the anniversary of Leah's passing, we held a quiet dinner, lit a candle, told stories. Lily said a prayer. And Mira sat beside me, holding my hand, honoring the woman who had brought us together. We didn't win a court case. We didn't triumph over villains. What we gained was something deeper, the chance to build something sacred from the ruins. And I, who once thought I had lost everything, ended up with more love than I ever thought I deserved. Sometimes family finds you in the unlikeliest places and heals you in ways you didn't know you needed. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what moment stayed with you most. Your voice keeps this community alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss more stories about love, loss, and the unexpected ways family is found. And if you know someone who needs hope today, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need.